It's okay. Hello, everyone, and good day. My name is Anthony Mills. I'm the Executive Director of Global Innovation Institute, and this is our October 2022 webinar. We want to welcome you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you for joining us and welcome you to this webinar. Just as a background, as most of you know, Global Innovation Institute is the world's leading professional certification and business association and membership association in the field of innovation. It operates globally with offices in the United States and other countries, and we have authorized providers who deliver the training programs and the assessment programs throughout North America, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Australia, and parts of Asia. And we're working on South America right now as well. So we're glad to have you here today. This is our October 2022 webinar. And what I'd like to do now is introduce our speaker to you. We are very excited to have today our guest, Mr. Eli Sheets. And I'll tell you about Eli and what he'll be talking about. And after I introduce Eli, I'll turn the floor over to him. So Eli Sheets is a seasoned IP attorney and entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in this field. He has become recognized as an authority on issues surrounding the patentability of blockchain-based inventions and regularly advises business organizations from new ventures to Fortune 100 corporations and from a cross-section of sectors regarding IP issues that may be relevant to their particular implementation of a distributed ledger technology, which is what blockchain is. Eli also works with clients to conceive strategies for developing blockchain-based assets and then leveraging these protected assets to drive new revenue. Eli presently serves as the founder and CEO of IdeaBlock, based in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. Moreover, for the past 8 years, Eli has been helping clients to secure patent rights over proprietary advanced wireless communications technologies, many of which have been written into or are currently being written into worldwide communication standards. Eli has written more than 500 patent applications for inventions in the wireless communication field alone and has prosecuted even more. Before practicing IP law, Eli studied electrical and computer engineering at MIT and at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and started his professional career as a patent examiner in the United States Patent and Trademark Office. After gaining valuable experience as a patent examiner, Eli earned a Juris Doctor degree with honors and an IP focus from the University of New Hampshire School of Law, Franklin Pierce Center for Intellectual Property. At University of New Hampshire, Eli served as the editor-in-chief of IDEA, the IP Law Review, one of the world's preeminent IP law publications, and clerked for federal judges at the trial court and appeals court levels. After graduating from law school, Eli began private legal practice at a large general practice firm in Washington, D.C. Today, Eli will be sharing with us about IdeaBlock, the software suite that powers GINI's AssetChain platform and that leverages the time-stamping functionality of distributed ledger networks to defensively protect all forms of intangible corporate assets against market competition quickly and economically. Before he starts, however, do let me mention that GINI has established AssetChain, its own GINI branded platform built on top of IdeaBlock, and you can learn more about that by visiting gini.org/GINI-centers/GINI-innovation-center/AssetChain, a link that I'll put in the chat window here momentarily. And so with all that said, please join me now in welcoming Mr. Eli Sheets to our webinar today. Eli, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Anthony, for that great introduction. I have a presentation here I'd like to present to all of you to tell you a little bit more about what we do here at IdeaBlock, first of all, and also kind of what Anthony is doing at GINI to bring that to you and the opportunity to for you all to potentially use the GINI branded IdeaBlock product for for your intellectual assets. So what I'd like to talk about today is just kind of where I or what I did to kind of bring IdeaBlock into the world after my private IP practice, and why I think IdeaBlock would be good for your company for protecting your assets as you continue to innovate in your particular vertical anywhere in the world. So Anthony, I'd like to go ahead and share my screen if that's all right.
Yes, go ahead. It will show. And we see your screen. Very good.
Okay, great. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Perfect. So I guess Anthony took care of this slide a little bit already, but what I've done in the past, started undergraduate studying electrical engineering and computer science at MIT and then at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So my background in terms of technology started off really even before that. When I was younger, my father was the chief technical officer at Cray Research, what was formerly Cray Research, but they still make some of the fastest computers in the world. So I was, early on, my conversations around home or at the dinner table and whatnot were about, tech and computers and coding. So early on, that was kind of put into my DNA, I guess, and that's kind of why I chose tech as kind of what I wanted to do in my life. Went off to study electrical engineering and computer science. I always loved it, but I was also interested in kind of the humanities and history and art, it's kind of the softer subjects as well. So when I got out of school, instead of going to work for an engineering firm, I thought, the legal side might be something that could kind of appeal to me, first of all, but also the things that I had studied can be put to good use, and naturally that fell in line with patent law and IP law. After being a patent examiner in DC after school, like Anthony said, kind of started practicing in private practice with high tech, 5G communications companies, and along about a decade of practice, saw a lot of things that kept popping up in terms of client complaints about their practice and their technology, and the over complication that the current system holds for them in terms of just being able to protect what they're innovating every day without the headache of hiring attorneys to protect every little thing, which becomes extremely expensive, and we'll talk about later. But also just the legal framework in general throughout the world of trying to protect your things nationally in your own country. Then you have to worry about internationally, of course. How the law changes in all of those jurisdictions, it's difficult to keep up with, and how difficult it was to simply go about their business and continue to innovate inside their company while constantly having to look over their shoulder and make sure that they're doing something right in a legal environment where the floor is constantly moving below their feet. So looking at those kind of those factors that we'll talk a little bit more about exactly how much some of these things cost in a bit, but those negatives about the current system, which really have severe effects, especially on smaller companies who don't have the resources to throw at these things. But you see a lot of frustration when it comes to the IP systems that currently are in place, and most people just want a quick, reliable, predictable, and affordable way to protect the assets that they have spent a lot of money developing and would like to protect against third parties. So really, working with clients of all different sizes over the decade I practiced law, I saw those complaints come to the forefront almost daily, right? And the entire time I would think, there's got to be a way to somehow make this easier for everyone without coming up with a global standard of overthrowing the entire way that people do things on a legislative level or something like that. And luckily, one day, as I was studying a little bit about blockchain, this was back in, I think, 2017 or so. I think it was a Saturday. I was having breakfast with my kids, and I was thinking about how Bitcoin was being used by some people, and Bitcoin obviously is a money transfer ledger based on blockchain, which I'm going to talk a little bit at the tech about that. But blockchain is simply a ledger of transactions of people sending a digital token to one another to different addresses, right? That ledger is essentially verified throughout every day, every moment by the largest and most powerful distributed computer network in the world. So the data that's on those on that ledger is extremely difficult to tamper with. It's to go back in time and change what's on that ledger would require a distributed network of hundreds of thousands of different nodes or computers to all agree on that change, which is very difficult to do. I can't even get my 4 kids to agree on what's for dinner, let alone hundreds of thousands of different nodes throughout the world that are completely anonymous, but are still running this very powerful standard to agree to rewind the clock on something. So using cryptography and very advanced algorithms, these computers agree on one thing, and one thing they agree on is the time that something happened. Okay, so I thought to myself, if we could find a way to use that to prove when a company had an asset or developed an asset in the IP space, we could defend that company against third parties going forward when there was a challenge to that piece of intellectual property, right? So, and I'll continue here on my slide to the next slide.
Hey, Eli, real quick, I think we're seeing your presenter view, not the
Oh, okay.
Full screen
Right.
version.
Right.
If you have the ability to switch over to that full screen version.
Right. Yeah, let me do that.
There we are. That's
this is a little better. I'm going to put it on to, what I'll do is put this over here. Just bear with me for 1 second so I can.
Sure, no problem.
So I can move this over here. Yeah, it does. It does that from time to time. Okay. So let me come back and share my desktop one. Share that, and then I'll bring this up and play it. Is that better?
Yes, that looks great.
Okay, perfect. So if we can use this timestamping machine, essentially that's impenetrable, we could protect these clients in the legal space for their IP. And it dawned on me that we could use this chain if we could put these ideas on that chain somehow. That would be pretty revolutionary, right? It's a way in the private market to do something that would otherwise require all these countries and jurisdictions to agree on some new law. So what I spent the next kind of year or so on was a feasibility check on that and seeing if we could do it, and it turns out you could. So I used kind of the skills for of coding and programming to find a way to make that happen. And what has emerged from that is what we're bringing to the market right now and offering to you with the GInI AssetChain is the evolution of that concept, where you can instantly and quickly and easily place any asset inside of your company, whether that's a patent type invention, copyright, trademark, or trade secret, can place evidence that you developed that particular asset at a certain time in a way it's provable beyond any shadow of a doubt. And what it allows you to do is to move forward in that development process and from your day-to-day, and your team can go forward with some assurance that you have that asset defensively protected because you could prove you were first. Okay, so coming back to the slide here. So the first kind of problem we'll go through is the cost of intellectual property protection, and also litigation later on to again enforce that IP. So the traditional forms of IP protection, which we'll talk about in a minute, patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets, right? They've become extremely cost prohibitive for companies, really at all levels. So if you have a startup, for example, the typical cost to obtain a U.S. patent only, like it says here, is $75,000, and that number has gone up. So that was as of 2018. It's north of that now. Now, if you're a startup that is doing something, for example, as a two-man shop or something out of your garage, that's a lot of money, especially for something that's essentially a piece of paper that you're not going to get for 5 years from the government, right? You have a lot more things that you'd like to spend $75,000 on than a piece of paper that has no guarantee of even coming back with a return to protect this piece. You'd rather just go to market. Now, if you look at an IBM, you scale it up to a larger company, they have thousands and thousands of these different ideas that are being thought of every day in their companies and their inside of their sphere. You multiply that by $75,000. Even now, IBM doesn't have pockets that deep, right? So they have to choose which of those ideas early on are going to be the ones that are going to eventually bear fruit for them. What you can't do at that point is go back in time and say, oh, we should have done this idea. The market actually turned, and it's too late at that point, right? So what you have to do is essentially have a crystal ball inside of the current system to pick what innovation inside of your company is going to be the profit bearing line now for something that's going to happen in the future, right? So you have to kind of predict the future. As we'll see, IdeaBlock allows you, and the GInI AssetChain allows you to have everything timestamped and defensively protected. And then as the market kind of evolves over time, decide which of those you'd like to go for maybe patent protection on or copyright protection on. So it allows you to kind of sleep better at night, knowing that everything that you've done in-house has that defensive protection going forward. Okay. So as you can see here, the numbers are very big and quite scary for some people that are starting a company and trying to scale it up. Okay. So another problem is it's also very difficult to manage your IP after you've gotten it. And when you've developed a bunch of new ideas, you've got things going on inside of your company. As a company scales, it's difficult, for a lot of managers to tell, okay, what exactly do we have going on in all of our different locations and in all of our different groups, to coordinate that, to decide, okay, what do we have in our Dubai office? What do we have in our India office versus what's going on, maybe in California in the United States? It's a lot of times what happens with companies is that they often duplicate their development because one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing, right? So especially early on in the life cycle of IP. And so what you have is a disparate misalignment of teams and managers where you don't know exactly who did what, you don't know who has access to what, and the management of those assets is a big deal because 91% of, at least in the United States, of capital in corporations is held in intangible assets now. It used to be in the 3 decades ago, much less, in the 20% of assets. It was back when you had lumber, you had oil, you had hard real estate assets. These were the things that value was held in. And now, as the economy's become more modern, it's become the driving factor in innovation or in capital in the economy. So these are the frustrations that people see. Okay, so let's talk just really quickly about the different kinds of intellectual property and what is required of them legally to have some kind of value inside of a product like IdeaBlock and GInI AssetChain. So you've probably heard of all these different kinds of IP at some point, but I'd like to kind of clear up what they are real quickly for those who aren't very familiar. So as a quick rundown. So first of all, let's go left to right. You have the idea of a patent. In the United States, as of 2012, the United States moved to a first to file system. It's called, where if you're going to get patent rights, which is a temporary monopoly over a certain certain technology that you filed for with the government. If you're first to file that with the government and get the patent on that, you can block others from the market from essentially practicing that piece of technology. Okay, and when you see what you see with that is, for example, drug formulations, mechanical machines like engines and engine parts, and electronics, other things that are physical. But what's happening now in that world is that it's becoming much more difficult, for example, to protect things that are less tangible. The case law is becoming making it much more difficult, for example, to be protected in a patent sense on anything that has to do with software, for example, which is a driver of almost all innovation now. You look at AI, you look at any type of technology that relates to drug development. These are all very AI heavy, deep learning, different algorithms that are driving the technology of these different sectors that make up a large majority of the innovative capacity of the world's economy, are now shut out of this patent system. Okay, so a lot of companies are looking for a place or a form of protection to go forward with that stuff, because now you're kind of left out in the wind, right? There's what typically used to be patentable is now not. Okay, second thing, trademarks. Okay, so trademarks are essentially a brand that you place on a product that is used to show to the customer and the consuming public what's the origin of goods, right? So the big ones are, Coca-Cola. You know that's coming from the Coca-Cola company, and that there's not any bad ingredients in there. So this trademark carries that value with it. Now it's when it comes to trademarks, it's the first to use. So if you're a company that's first to put products out on the market that has this mark on it, the Coca-Cola trademark, which was hundreds of years ago it first started. So they've been using that and have the kind of the consumer base and the understanding in the public that they were first, and they have provided those services or those products on the market for so long that that the quality of those goods is high, right? And you're going to buy it for that reason. That's why trademark infringement, you get knockoff companies selling stuff. You can't vouch for the safety of those items, or the quality of those items, and that's why companies who are have trademarks and are making quality goods want to knock off the folks that are knocking them off, because their customer base is ruining their reputation, right? So again, first to use, all right, in the law. Trade secrets. Okay, trade secrets are a bit of a different animal, because the government isn't necessarily involved in giving someone a trade secret. I can make a trade secret right now just simply by keeping it secret and not telling anyone. The government, the only interaction with government is in the legal system, where if someone steals that secret from me, okay, if they actively attempt to make that secret public, or use it, right, and make that product public that uses a trade secret that I've actively kept secret, you could sue them for that, right? They've stolen that. But if you voluntarily, tell a bunch of people about a secret, right? The law says that that's now in the public domain, and we can't protect you for that. Okay, so it's incumbent on folks who are using technology that they keep as trade secrets to be able to show that they kept it secret, and how, right? To keep a trail of that. And we'll talk about that a bit, how Ideablock helps with that. But again, in terms of time, in the legal field, the first to use this technology that's kept as a trade secret is going to win in court. Okay, you have to have evidence of that, which we help with. Last, in the arts, right? So we're talking about you talk about anything that deals with music, fine art, manuscripts for books, movies, everything that you typically think of with a copyright. It's the first to record that work of art on a piece of paper, on a tangible medium of some sort. So it's putting it on a computer, for example. You can timestamp when that was placed on a server, right, or on a computer. That counts. So again, first, the one that wins there is the first to record that piece of work. So the one aspect that runs through all four of these, they're all much different in their own ways, but the one thing that they all have in common is that first wins. Okay, so if you can prove that you were first with something, and that makes sense, right? Nobody, no government in the world would want to protect the second guy, right? Because the second guy didn't put in the capital, didn't put in the sweat equity to get this out to the market, to think of these things and educate themselves, to come up with these new ideas to drive the economy forward. So it's true for not only the United States, but these are worldwide concepts in all jurisdictions, is that if you could prove you were first, you're going to win that case in the long run, right? So again, coming back to what I was talking about with timestamping with IdeaBlock, this is why using IdeaBlock as a timestamping tool will allow you to protect yourself against others, because it becomes evidence, rock solid evidence, that you were first against others that are challenging that piece of intellectual property. Okay, and that fight that would typically happen in the courts for millions and millions of dollars can be settled almost instantly by simply sliding a paper across the table that has your proof of timestamping on IdeaBlock on it, right? So it becomes an evidentiary tool that dissuades litigation and helps keep money in your pocket, both on the tail end by averting litigation, but also when it comes to kind of the patent realm on the front end. There's some stuff that used to be you'd have to either get a patent on or keep it on the cutting room floor, right? A lot of innovation at a company. Some of it, only a small fraction of that can we go after patent protection, just given the cost of that for a single patent. Now with IdeaBlock, you can instantly protect everything that you're innovating if you make it part of your innovation culture. Something that we could do automatically every day, or every time we think of something, and put it on chain, on IdeaBlock, put on the GInI AssetChain. And as you're working in real time, you're protecting yourself against future IP challenges in a defensive aspect, and push that decision until a later date when you have more information about the market or market conditions or your company's situation as to what exactly do we want to go get an international patent protection on, for example, right? These are things you'd like to have more information about before you make decisions about these things. So having this baseline protection of a timestamp on everything, one that cannot be manipulated, one that's backed by deep math that I won't get into now, or else I'd be talking about it up until the afternoon. But this technology allows numbers, infinitesimally small numbers, chances that this can be wrong. And you look at other forms of evidence of timestamping that have existed before, that companies used to use, like a lab notebook that's dated every day, right? Or these types of evidence are completely fallible and based on human fallibility. So you have people that forget things over time, right? Humans forget. You bring them up, you bring your secretary up to the stand in a lawsuit 15 years later, she's not going to remember on what day something happened, 15 years ago. We simply don't have the capacity to do that as a human. We don't have the capacity to prove that we didn't, backdate some type of lab notebook, right? 20 to 15 years later. We now have the technology to not need to worry about and trust other humans when it comes to that stuff, because we've used mathematics and a worldwide timestamping machine to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this truth is exactly how it happened. And that's what we bring to you in a very easy to use package when it comes to protecting your assets. Okay. So as you say here, first to wins, and if you can prove it, right? And we prove it. IdeaBlock can prove that for you in a real-time manner, cost-effective manner, and something that you can deploy instantly and quickly and easily across your enterprise. Okay. So, like we said before, we use the trustless verification of blockchain, right, on these worldwide networks to protect and manage all of your IP. Okay, and you can do it instantly, and that protection is forever. If you're first, right? Now we can't help you innovate faster. That's on you coming up with the actual ideas, right? But what we can do if you are working and have great ideas is to ensure that those ideas are protected, right? To ensure that if you are first, we can prove that you're first and help you keep that money in your pocket instead of a competitor or some other third party, right, in an adjacent market. So we can do that across, again, not only the typical hard IP, the tech heavy stuff when it comes to drug development or these verticals that are typically thought of with tech, but really with any type of advancement, right? So when it comes to the arts, again, with copyright stuff, we help with that. And one thing that IdeaBlock has been recognized for, especially, is solving the trade secret problem. So let me talk about that for a second. So, I said earlier that patents are becoming very, very difficult to obtain now, not only in the US, but throughout the world when it comes to certain technologies. It just happens that those technologies are also driving the world's innovation, right? So when it comes to software and we just had a worldwide pandemic, for example, with different medical technologies that were very important and frankly very lucrative. These different technologies, to get them made, to have companies with money to develop these things, they're going to want some type of protection on those investments that says, okay, if I put billions of dollars into developing an electronic car, am I going to wake up the next day and have someone in another country have stolen my idea and now all of my capital's gone, right? The patent system used to kind of do a good job, or a better job, I think, of protecting that investment. And now I'm not so sure if I'm that guy with the money, right? If I'm that guy that's looking for to put money into tech, that I want to put money into that if there's no guarantee that that's going to be protected on the tail end and I get my money back. Okay, so looking at different vehicles for protecting these investments, okay, and these different innovations. If I can't go to the patent route, okay, I have to look for something else. And one of those vehicles, as we talked about, is the trade secret vehicle. Okay, if instead of trying to obtain a patent, I can keep it in-house and keep it secret, right? With a patent, you have to make it public and go apply for a piece of paper from the government. Trade secret, you just keep it secret, right? You keep the circle of trust of people who know this idea very small. You make sure that it's locked up tight, and nobody hears about it, and the government will grant you protection on if anybody steals that. Now, the way that people used to keep trade secrets protected is to essentially build higher fences around their factory, make sure that they limit access to their grounds and to their knowledge base, which is still true. But limiting physical access to information or to notebooks inside of their company or to whatever they do, machines they're using the trade secret on inside of their actual physical factory location or headquarters, that's a very 20th century industrial revolution type model. We've moved the economy into this new model, which is very much based on electrons flying through wires throughout the world and software based things that physical location has become secondary to the actual information, because it's kind of floating out wherever. So companies have felt the need to say, I've got people working at home. I've got people, we're working in, we have 5 different global locations. How am I going to lock up my intellectual property as a trade secret and something like that? Well, there really hasn't been a tool that has been able to prove when I had this technology without disclosing the technology itself, if that makes sense, right? Because if you tell someone about this technology itself, a third party that was going to vouch that you had it at a certain date, you've necessarily disclosed the substance of that technology and give it up your trade secret, right? So it's a quid pro quo. It's a catch-22, excuse me, is that I can't have someone vouch for my timestamp up until now, okay, without telling them what the heck we're talking about, right? and that becomes a problem. With Ideabloc, we use technology and cryptography to come up with what's called a code. It's called a hash for a certain idea. That hash is unique, and it's 64 letters and numbers that are a direct representation of a certain set of files that comprise your idea, right? So your piece of IP that you're going to keep as a trade secret. That goes on chain, essentially, on the blockchain. Okay, and that's the piece of information that ties that idea into the chain and timestamps it. Okay. Now, a random string of numbers and letters doesn't relay any information about the trade secret. But what it does do is it gets the same result as you had before, right? It timestamps it because you can come back later on and say, okay, this piece of IP that I'm keeping as a trade secret existed at this time because it has the same code, right? And it's advanced technology when it comes to how this code's generated. But if it's generated today on that same set of files, that same code will be generated 15 years from now on that same set of files. So you can tell that it existed at this particular time if it's on chain, and that's what we provide for you. So it provides a way. It solves that problem, and we've taken that problem and kind of made it a problem of the past, right? You can timestamp and prove that you had something in a trade secret sense at a certain time without disclosing that secret, right? So it's become something that people are very excited about, and our current clients really love to use for things that they're keeping as trade secrets, as the value and popularity of trade secrets as a protection vehicle skyrockets, and frankly, right now. All right. So move on to the next slide here. So, giving you a quick glimpse of what our product looked like there on the right. I mean, that's a screenshot of what our platform looks like. And you could talk to Anthony, as he said earlier on, if you would like to get a demo to have more information about running some of your stuff through and getting your fingers on it, so you can see if it's something that will work for you. And we would be happy to help with that as well. So what essentially we do is we take these set of files that might describe an invention. So it might be, computer code files, right? The source code for something. Those files are typically, you have JavaScript files or, any type of file in that regard. Maybe it's a photo that you took of a napkin that you wrote down a new idea on last night at dinner, right? The information on that photo can be placed into this box that we eventually put on chain and timestamp. It could be a video of yourself talking about, or a sound recording, a voice recording of yourself talking about this new invention. Okay, any form of file works completely fine. Whatever you like to record your IP on, completely fine. We're worried about timestamping that information. It's all ones and zeros to us, right? But for you, it allows you flexibility in how you're going to protect that IP. So what we do is we take those files, okay? We essentially package them into one big box, okay? Together in a container. We take the cryptographic hash of that container, that one-to-one code, like I was talking about before, that's 64 numbers and letters, and we place that on chain for you, and then allow you, through our platform, as you see on the right, to instantly later on go on and manage those, right? So I could see the proof of when I put this thing on here just by using our Ideablock platform. It's all right there for you and easy to use, like you're browsing, any type of database, and it's easy to put your IP onto Ideablock into the platform. It's just as easy as using Facebook or Instagram or any type of social network where you're putting photos up. It's exactly the same. You're just going to select the the different files and click upload, and you have a new idea on Ideabloc that's tied into blockchain, and you get all the benefits of that defensive protection instantly. Okay, and then management as well. So you want to talk about the different types of analytics that can really drive informed growth and innovation in your company. What groups inside of our company are innovating the most? What direction do they seem to be heading in a tech sense when it comes to what they're developing? These are all pieces of information, along with countless others that Ideabloc can provide for you inside of your enterprise to go forward in the smartest way, and to also protect you along the way. For example, for employees that might depart, as happens very frequently, fairly frequently, especially recently, taking those employees taking files or information with them, and giving it to your competitors or their new employer. You can see, we've recently had billion-dollar cases, out of California and Silicon Valley with, for example, Waymo and Uber. You have trade secrets cases that are in the billions for one guy leaving and taking trade secrets with him, right? You can prove using Ideabloc who had access to those on your system. You can manage employees, you can manage teams, you can manage projects with these different pieces of IP, just so they're all very organized across your enterprise. Again, one hand knows what the other is doing because it's the hub for your team to manage that IP early on. And not only are you managing it in a very streamlined manner in a centralized location, you're also protecting it while you manage it, right? So you're ticking off both of those big checks on your list of problems that currently plague a lot of tech companies, right? So moving on here. So why does this matter? Again, we talk about defense cases. They could quickly bankrupt a company if they don't have the deep pockets for it. This defrays costs, especially against trolls. It's a troll killer. You can instantly tell them to go away, right? If you're first, it's very easy to defray litigation using Ideabloc and our technology. Okay, you look at, again, as I said earlier, you have these inventions that typically end up on the cutting room floor and in the patent or IP protection system, where I don't have the capital to go get formal IP protection on these, and therefore I've kind of abandoned the potential use for them in the market because they're not protected. Well, now Ideabloc allows you to protect those as you're developing them, so you can go to the market, right, without worrying about being kicked out of the market by somebody else that has for example, a patent on that idea that you didn't have the money to get a patent on, right? You can guarantee your entry to the market. You're still gonna have to compete with third parties, right? You're not gonna be able to kick them out of the market with Ideabloc, but you are going to have access to the market, which you wouldn't have had otherwise, okay? Which is a big deal. So, and again, like we talked about, there's an ever-changing legal framework when you're talking about worldwide IP. You have not only case law changing inside of your, and legislation being introduced to change the laws inside of your own country, but then that's also going on in every jurisdiction throughout the world, okay, that are changing their laws or their court opinions on how IP is supposed to be run. It becomes very difficult to comply with all of those, that patchwork of different laws inside of a company in a real-time manner, without changing big aspects of your enterprise and fumbling all over the red tape and really clogging up your system of innovation, not allowing you to innovate. What Ideabloc does is it says, we don't care about this patchwork of little court opinions and this. If you're first, you win, right? That's the way it works in IP. Okay, we've simplified it to that, and we're not a government entity, and it's we don't have to worry. That's a good thing for us because we don't have to worry about giving people patents and proving that they're. All we care about is time, right? And we protect you by being able to prove beyond any doubt at all that you were first, And in any country, in any industry, throughout time, history, time immemorial to now, if you were first, right, you win. And we're the most powerful tool for proving that you were first that's ever existed. Okay. And so bringing that to your doorstep allows you to, in a very simple way, a very cost-effective way, for you to integrate IP protection into your workflow and in a very quick and painless manner. Okay. So this is something that comes as just a one size fits all, easy to introduce into your company, easy to put stuff into, put your IP into, and much easier to manage. So everyone is protected instantly, protected forever, and serves as a springboard for you to go forward in your particular industry, whatever that might be. Okay. So again, we talked about the different upsides of these. So I know that we want to save a little time for questions. I see we've got about 15 minutes left here, Anthony. So I just wanted to kind of wrap up and say thank you for having me today. It was a pleasure. And if anyone out there has any questions for me directly, feel free to reach out, but also reach out to Anthony for access to the product and give it a test run. We'd love to hear from you. We're just now coming out of a beta and launching our enterprise version, which we've put a lot of work into and we're very proud of. So we're really excited about sharing that with you, and we're excited about our partnership with GInI and bringing that to you folks that are members. So.
Well, very good. Thank you, Eli. That's excellent. So I would invite questions and comments in the chat, or if you'd like, you can raise your hand or just jump in and we can have you ask a question directly on the with your microphone, or you can put it in the chat session. But I guess for my part, I wanted to kind of throw out a comment and ask a question maybe. So at least when it comes to patents, I think of two different strategies: an offensive strategy and a defensive strategy. And offensive strategy is there's certain things I want patents for, I'm going to go seek patents,
Right.
but that's probably only, I don't know, 2% of all my intangible assets. The
Right.
other 98%, because I can't afford to go off to 100%, like you mentioned. The other 98%, I need a defensive strategy, which
Right.
means I need a way to defend against, being locked out and maintaining freedom to operate. So I think that's where AssetChain and IdeaBlock really come in, as that defensive strategy. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Eli, but I think how this plays out is if someone files a patent or applies for a patent, and you already have that, then what this platform allows you to do is to demonstrate prior art.
Yes.
Is that the correct way to put it?
Exactly.
So we're able to bring in our timestamp records and say, hey, there is prior art. So if the patent is under application, we can prevent the claims from being issued. If it has already been issued, we can potentially have the claims invalidated because we're able to demonstrate prior art. Is that all correct?
Exactly right. And the upshot of that is that I don't have to shut down my factory now.
Right.
Right. This is where the law meets real life, is that there are consequences for these things, right? Is that, we can, if I get a cease and desist letter, right, from a patent holder on something that relates to what I had first, right? I can, one of the defenses in any court battle for someone who's being sued for patent infringement is invalidation, right? Because I can essentially, like you said, invalidate the claims of the patents that's being asserted against me because it shouldn't have been issued in the first place. Okay, that patent shouldn't have been issued by the government in the first place because I have prior art that I can show. And not only do I have prior art based on, a lab notebook, like we talked about, which has gone on for 50 years. That's been good enough for 50 years. I don't know how, but it has, right? It's several, infinity levels more accurate and defensible than the present state of affairs when it comes to evidence. We're much more verifiable than all that stuff, right? So not only are you able to go in with evidence that you were first, but evidence that, frankly, the other side can't shouldn't even respond to, because it'd be futile.
Right, and you said, the patent office, the patent and trademark office shouldn't have issued it, but of course if they didn't know about it, they might have
Right.
issued it. But at least at this point now we're bringing it to their attention,
Yes.
and
And that's very typical.
now we can, right, exactly,
Yeah.
now we have this. So I think Waleed has a question about, are there any cases currently with the patent and trademark office where something on the blockchain is considered prior art?
Right. So, that's kind of the holy grail, right, for a federal case to come up that has something on chain. There is not yet, is the answer to that. However, there are now tens of cases. I believe there are about 20 cases. I just saw something that came across the wire last week about another case out west of blockchain evidence being considered indisputable in the U.S. courts for different types of cases, right? There is not yet anything directly related to intellectual property as prior art on as for example, a Supreme Court precedent or something like that would put it in stone forever. But the reason for that, and that's kind of expected with how much the law lags behind technology, right? So we're one of the only companies that's we're early on in this about timestamping using blockchain and kind of applying that to intellectual assets. Now, you might have seen, and this is being a little bit sarcastic, but you might have seen something called an NFT over the last couple of years. I'm sure that many of you have heard of this. I mean, that sprung up way after IdeaBlock started, and it's greatly inferior. And if you'd like me to explain why, but that is a very hot kind of topic now. So blockchain as proof of something existing is something that needs to become more of a embedded in the business world or in the culture before cases will be filed based on that, right? Or for innovation and marketplace activity to occur for a long enough time where an infringement suit exists based on that, right? So it takes about 5 or 10 years, and within 5 or 10 years there will be one, just because it takes time for those patents to be issued, right? And for something that's on chain, using IdeaBlock, for example, to throw that patent out, it takes time for that scenario to develop naturally in the marketplace and in the courts. So there hasn't yet, but all signs point to, and frankly, logic and science and the law itself point to it being a no-brainer for this type of evidence being accepted and taken.
Hi, Eli. This is Waleed. Just a follow-up question about the contents of that container that is put on the block. Obviously, the contents are nothing more than a claim, right? And you don't interfere in the specification of what that claim entails. So assuming that this is related to a patent instead of me submitting to the patent office, I could write basically a provisional or non-provisional application and instead put it on the blockchain, assuming that it's less expensive.
Right.
And then the way it's written, obviously, we're back to square one, where you can't really avoid the legality of the specification itself of how the content is actually expressed.
Right. So I don't know if you're alluding to the kind of the formality required for applying for a patent with the claim structure and all that stuff. That's very difficult for a lot of people to kind of, you essentially have to hire a lawyer for writing those properly, right? If you're going to make the investment. It's much easier, right, to not have to put that legalese into the system and have it translated by an attorney into their language, it'd be much easier to have, you know, the technology itself, you know, whether that's computer code or your meeting notes about talking about it or whatever, be the IP itself. Because really that's the way it is that you want to just have the IP timestamped. Putting this layer of formality when it comes to patent claims and timing of provisional patent filings or making decisions on this stuff, you know, that stuff's all secondary to the real truth. Is really, as a society, we want to know who's first, right? We want to give an incentive to the first and kind of a reward to the first person or entity that did something. It all stems out of just simple fairness, I think, you know, and what we provide is kind of a way to measure that fairness, right?
Yeah, so it's up to the author to go to whatever extent they wish.
Yes, there's no formalities required when it comes to prior art.
Yeah, I guess specify and define as clearly as possible what the idea is about, and that they could even reference some external resources or even do a patent search for that matter.
Exactly right. So there's, you know, it's just much less formal and rigorous, right, when it comes to the prior art side.
Okay,
and we're kind of taking advantage of that. Yep.
What happens to versioning? Let's say that
right.
I submit a piece of software and I do an improvement and I want the improvement to be included.
Yeah, so with Ideabloc, okay, what we have that deals with versioning, and it not only applies to traditional coding versioning, right, but also to versioning of anything, you know, manuscript versioning for authors, or, you know, genome, you know, whatever you're doing, versioning that maybe it's Monday, I put something up, and then Tuesday I think of something new. Now, in the old scheme, I would have to go come up with $10,000 on Tuesday, right, to file a new provisional application with an attorney that adds that additional aspect into what I filed on Monday. Okay, now that becomes a very expensive proposition when you zoom out and it becomes a, you know, years-long development process for a certain product, right? Because maybe I have 50 different patent applications that have all built upon the first one that was filed, right? Yeah. You have to keep all that straight. You have to make sure that everyone's paid for it, all the fees are paid for all those to keep them alive. Okay, with Ideabloc, you just simply add the additional material, and it's timestamped after you press one click. And what we have is a concept of families inside of Ideabloc, which allow you to relate your today's invention or today's edition to that previously filed idea, right? So we have a family of ideas that can be traced back to each other and make yourself a nice timeline of how this product developed over time, not only for your own edification and benefit of seeing how things develop inside your company in front of your face, but also when it comes to the legal side, be able to say, okay, this is when I thought of the wheels on a car. Here's when I thought of the internal combustion engine on the car. Here's when I thought of making a body on the car. Therefore, you were later on the internal combustion engine thing. You know, yes, that wasn't the first thing I put up because I thought of the wheels first, but still on this date, I beat you with that part of it, right? So you can make components of a larger product and make them easy and quickly protected. Are
there incremental charges for the
no
future versions?
No, we want people to use our product. Okay, so you know, early on when I was designing the structure of how it will work, you know, I had the same question for myself. Should it be an a la carte thing where you pay every time that you put something up, or should it be something where it's a subscription and kind of software as a service, where if I pay by the month or, you know, pay by the year, I can just use it and don't have to worry about that. And luckily we have technology under the hood that allows our users, they don't have to worry about that. We take care of that. So
do you guys do micro entity?
What's that?
Do you do micro entity in the PTO language, I guess?
No, I mean, I don't even know. Oh, micro entity. I see what you're saying. Yeah, we have different levels. Yes, I see what you're saying. No, yeah.
Like for individuals like me, for instance.
Yeah, I know what you're saying there. So yeah, large entity, small entity, and micro entity.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean we have different tiers, and Anthony is the guy to talk to about that when it comes to their product. So.
And let me just chime in too. First of all, going back to the other question about is there a case yet? The inner geek in me is excitedly waiting for that day when it happens, when the court case happens and the blockchain records are presented and validated as the evidence. And I'm just kind of savoring that, salivating for waiting for that moment because it'll be a fun moment. Yeah, there was another question here from Ahmad. He wanted to know, okay, you prove you're the idea of the owner through blockchain, but this whole process is a little bit different from country to country. So there's some countries that's laws may not yet be convinced about blockchain, even if it does get, the United States does convince. Any comments on differences in countries there, Eli?
Yeah, I think, there's no way for me to say, predict with 100%, complete certainty that every country in the world, all the way through will have the same opinion on that, because again, that's going to be individual judges and there's politics involved and whatnot. But when you look at the arc of history and development of legal frameworks, that's it doesn't make sense not to reward the first person, right? It doesn't. That really would be a quite a random decision, right? To all of a sudden have this solid concrete proof, this vehicle for proof, that's being utilized for time stamping and proving who had something first, but then not use it or consider it valid, right? Because what all we do is help them find the first person, right? I don't think that principle underlying IP law is going to change because it's actually, there's no equity in that for people. To be able to reward the second or third guy rather than the first guy, right? I think that as time goes on, whether there's one or two places out there that have a bad decision, an incorrect decision on that front, I think that will be corrected due to essentially international pressure and other economic factors that would have folks that are using this maybe not want to use your country for a venue, right? For example, if they can't trust that law.
And I think a lot of countries look to the United States Patent and Trademark Office and sort of follow, they're influenced by it. They follow suit. Like if the USPTO takes a certain strategy or philosophy or approach, a lot of times they will follow. Not always, but there is an influence there. Would you say that's correct, Eli?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And, I just was just looking in here. It looks like recently, Spain Supreme Court has spoken to it and has said that anything on chain when it comes to blockchain that can be proven is to be taken as valid evidence, right? So they're the first kind of country that's done this. I just wanted to check on the current state of it. So this is all moving very quickly, right? So
it's happening in Spain. Okay.
In Spain, that's happening, and so it's coming around internationally, and a lot of countries are even further along than the United States is in this process, because they've made an effort to be at the forefront of this new technology as an economic strategy, right? For bringing those dollars in, right? So I think it would be foolish for a country to have the other side, but I can't guarantee they won't be foolish.
Right. Well, time will tell for sure. Yeah. Well, I think that brings us to the top of the hour, actually a little past, and at the end of our questions. And I really just appreciate all the questions and input from everyone here, and want to thank you all for participating, and particularly thank Eli for presenting IdeaBlock and AssetChain to us today. I did put the link for AssetChain in the chat here, so feel free to check that out. You can sign up for a free trial and give it a test run and kick the tires a little bit and see what it feels like and how it works and so forth. And of course, there's information there too about signing up your organization to use it. But it's I guess I'll just close by saying it's an incredibly exciting tool, incredibly powerful. To me, it's an incredibly powerful time in the history of intellectual property to actually be able to use the power of distributed networks, like blockchain, to timestamp things and prove prior art. And I think it's going to be an inflection point in the intellectual property world, and it's exciting. So it's a really great platform, exciting platform, a cool platform, and I look forward to everyone hopefully having an opportunity to check it out and try it out. Any last thoughts, Eli, before we sign off?
I just want to say thank you again for having me. I share your sentiment on the exciting nature of this tech movement and in the law, both tech and the law. And I really appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to come hear about us and hear about what we're doing on that forefront. We're excited and we love to hear from you. If you have any questions after this, I look forward to working with you going forward. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So with that, everyone, we'll sign off and say goodbye until next month with our next webinar in November. I'm Anthony Mills, wishing you a great day. Goodbye.